Good evening, folks. It's about 8:30, and we're on a Wednesday evening. And so, don't know how long this is going to last, but things are starting to open back up for weddings. And I wanted to make myself available through a live stream to answer questions. So, the first thing I want to do is to get this out. There we go, to as many places as I can. Thing I want to do and so pardon me while I get this going. So 2020 been a very interesting year, folks. I mean, just amazingly so. Not in a positive way. Don't get me wrong. Not in a positive way at all. So bear with me one moment. I am going to share this link in several different places really quick. And you feel free to do the same. This is, first of all, in Alabama, the marriage laws have changed dramatically as of last year. So I want to cover that, along with any other questions that good folks may have in regards to weddings. My name is Kelsey Graham. I have been, especially in my retirement years, have become a wedding pro. I started as a wedding officiant. We added on other services because we got so busy and the needs of the brides, the couples. I think sometimes it's kind of funny. We kind of forget that the wedding is not just a bride's wedding. So let's not forget that there's a groom involved as well. We kind of put a lot of focus on the bride, but there's two parties involved in that. And of course now it don't have to be a bride and a groom. It could be a groom and a bride and a bride. So we just don't want to. Those things do make a difference in today's world, right? Absolutely. If you're in the wedding, hold on a second. I'm going to get there. And I couldn't really get this set up the way I wanted to until I got started with the stream. So bear with me. In the meantime, if you got questions about weddings in any area of the wedding, that's what I'm here for. I've done thousands of weddings. I've been involved in thousands of weddings. And so you've got an engagement, you got a date set, or if you're just planning a wedding and maybe even hadn't set a date yet, you need some advice on planning your wedding. Any of the above. That's why I'm here this evening. It is 8:30 Central Daylight Time, and I'm talking to you from Central Alabama, a little bit south of Birmingham. For the last dozen or so years, I've been at this full time. Literally have done weddings all the way from Knoxville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, down to the Gulf Coast, to Orange Beach, Gulfport, Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi, all through Mississippi. Of course, Mobile to Athens to Limestone County, Hartselle, all up. There's very few places I haven't done weddings over the years. In fact, that's my bald head there at a castle in Shelby County, where I do a lot of weddings. And this weekend, on Saturday, I'm going to be in Decatur, Mississippi, for a wedding at another castle there. So now, it goes without saying, 2020 has been a most interesting year, not just for weddings, but if you're dealing with weddings, countless numbers of couples have had to postpone their weddings because of the COVID-19, the pandemic that we're still enduring. And I'm urging a little bit of caution. People are starting to move about and whatnot. Don't know how that's going to go. There's a lot of spiking going on with cases, and don't know what's going to happen from there. I urge everybody to proceed cautiously and do their best to social distancing, all the above. Be careful. The virus is still out there. It's very real. And be on the side of a solution. Okay, I know there are still some skeptics out there, but I have to cover that up front because I would be remiss to not encourage you to take it seriously and be thoughtful. A lot of people have underlying conditions, especially elderly people and whatnot. So just really, really want you to be thoughtful when you're dealing with weddings right now. I think it's just a wise thing to do. Okay, now, things are opening up. Make no mistake about it. Things are opening up. People are going ahead with their plans now with weddings. And a lot of people have had time to really give thought as to the weddings and the plans. So where do I want to start with this? First of all, in the comment section, either on, I've got this streaming several different places. I don't have anybody helping me, so I hope I get your comments or your questions. I will offer you a phone number, and let me see if I can put that phone number up here where you can call in to me. And here we go. All right, there's a toll-free number where you can call if you do have a question about weddings. It can be any part of the wedding. I've literally been involved in thousands of weddings, from the decorations, flowers, to all the way through to the planning stages. I started out officiating weddings because my background is in ministry. I became very popular because I will serve everybody. I'm non-judgmental. I think love is a wonderful thing to celebrate. So I'm very open with that. I'm also very pragmatic. I will tell you, and I have written a book on this very subject, and I emphasize this to everybody I deal with. This celebration that you call a wedding does not, in reality, create the marriage. For the most religious out there, we live in a mostly Christian culture, and so I relate it somewhat to the Bible without being preaching the Bible, just giving Christians something to think about, because over the years, you'll have people say, I want a Bible-based wedding. And you've got to understand, first of all, out of the 66 books of the Protestant Bible, there are no weddings. There's a wedding feast. There's no wedding ceremony talked about. Jesus did not officiate a wedding. So there's no example as to a ceremony taking place in the, not at all. There were celebrations. Jesus went to a wedding feast. Didn't say anything about him going to the wedding. Marriage, in all reality, takes place in the heart. That's where it develops. Most people could not even articulate. They cannot define the exact day and moment that they felt married. I was brought up in the realm of Christianity that I was brought up in, that basically once you were engaged, you had made that commitment, and you had to, at that point, act as if you were married. The license that you get from the state, which I'm going to talk about that some more, because you no longer get a license in Alabama. You still do in Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia. Alabama is the only state in the nation who's changed their marriage laws. You don't get a marriage license anymore in the state of Alabama. And I am going to cover that. Because I do so many weddings, I followed this through very carefully. And as it evolved, I dealt with the where it stems from. It's controlled now by the Department of Vital Records out of Montgomery, Alabama, and that's the ones I talked to and dealt with directly. There was all kind of rumors and talk going on that by uninformed people making a lot of assumptions. So we're going to go over that as well. If you're in Alabama and you plan on getting married, you've got to understand the process. And I go over it with every couple that I deal with. You need to go to the courthouse at all. You can do everything online and then get a notary, and then you can mail in to any probate office in anywhere in the state, along with a fee that they're required to file it. And each county has had the liberty to set their own fee for the filing of the marriage license. And so you'll need to check. Some counties have priced it extremely high. Other counties are more palatable to the pocketbook. Let me put it that way. Alabama has never been one of the least expensive states in the nation to get married in. In our area, Mississippi is the most affordable state to get married in. Their marriage license costs $25 to $30, something like that. In Tennessee, they will offer you a discount on your marriage license. You have certification from someone that you underwent premarital counseling. So they will offer a discount in Tennessee for having undergone premarital counseling. And I want to talk about that as well. So you have gotten engaged, and you have, at this point, planning your wedding, and you've got to, where are you going to get married? And the things that initially people are thinking about are, of course, the venue, the setting they want, the photography, the flowers, the dresses, the suits, tuxedos, the food, the music, all those things. And in my role, I emphasize to people that is all fantastic. That's all part of the celebration of this ritual we call a wedding. But none of that, all that, most of that, 99% of what's done on a wedding day is peripheral to the event. It is add-ons, if you will. The wedding itself runs an average of 20 minutes or so, unless you are in a Catholic Episcopalian church. The ritual can go on a lot longer than that. Most weddings run an average of 20 minutes. It can go longer based upon different components you want in the ceremony and the number of people you have standing up with you, bridesmaids, groomsmen, and so forth. But over the thousands of weddings I've done, the average has been around 20 minutes, even with a processional, recessional, and so forth. So you've gotten engaged. The first thing that people generally do is pick a date. When would you like to get married? And they will go through, and based hopefully on parents, grandparents, the important people to them that they want to witness this event, based on their schedules and availability, would begin the starting point as to the date they pick. If it's important to them that grandma be there, if it's important to them that dad be there, then that's usually the starting point. Some people have a particular date in mind that has some historical significance, some sentimental value to them. That date could be, it's been a 2-year anniversary that we've met, a 2-year anniversary from our first date, a 1-year anniversary, we got engaged, want to get married on my birthday, all kinds of reasons that people choose certain dates. Believe it or not, one popular date that I have performed a lot of weddings on is Pi Day, P-I. If you're into math and you're nerdy, that could be So for whatever reason you begin looking at venues and so forth. And now based on the first thing that should take place when you plan a wedding is to look at your budget. What can we afford to spend? And then if you tally up your expense, you say, okay, we can afford $15,000 total. That's the most we can possibly. We've got X number of cash and X number of credit. We're willing to do this, or dad's going to chip in this much, and whatever. And always anticipate going over your budget. Strive to go under your budget, and I'm going to help you think of ways to go under your budget. Always think of ways to try to do that. Living with the expectation that you may go over your budget. After you've got engaged and you start working on these details of the wedding, you got your budget laid out, you know the date that you would like to have, and you know the theme, the setting that you would like to have for your wedding. By a lake, I want to get married with this kind of setting. I want a themed wedding. And believe me, I've seen Alice in Wonderland weddings. I've seen Star Wars weddings. People, whatever their interests are in life, they can pick a theme. The majority of weddings are more traditional and not themed as such. The vast majority. We live in a conservative part of the country, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia. We do get some themed weddings, but by far the majority are very traditional. The girl, as you see in the picture here, wearing a white dress with a veil and so on and so forth. As you start looking and you think, I would like to get married outside. I would like this rustic barn feel. Well, first of all, in the South anymore, there are all kinds of choices for that setting. That's a very popular choice, and there's countless venues. So you have to take into consideration to the convenience of where this venue is. Are people going to be coming from out of town, staying at hotels, and how close can to this venue can they stay? You've got, and of course, the availability of the venue. And we're going to talk more about that, because when you start getting into this wedding planning, this is why a lot of people up front will say, oh, this is overwhelming. I've got to go to work. I'm finishing up my master's degree. I can't think of all this stuff. So they'll hire a wedding planner to help them go through this. But even with a wedding planner, they still got to make decisions, unless they are just do whatever. This is what I want, make it happen. That's the ideal situation for a wedding planner. But very few brides are going to turn over that kind of control. They pretty much have in mind kind of what they would like to see. So you go and you've got the date, a venue, and then you've got to decide the availability of all the vendors that's going to help you put this wedding together to make it go. From the wedding officiant, minister, to the whoever does your florals, to whoever does the music, to whoever does your photography, video, if you're going to get a video, to whoever is going to do your cake. It's, there's a seemingly endless line of things that you have to consider around this date. If you've got particular vendors that you choose, if you want one particular person to stand up and officiate the wedding, if that's very important to you, if there's any component of this wedding, it's very important to you that you use this particular person, then that particular person is the one you need to talk to about their availability before you book anywhere, or you may end up being disappointed. Ask for recommendations if you don't know somebody that does a cake. And make sure that you know your budget all the way through. I tell a lot of couples, they're looking, cakes can be very expensive. Believe it or not, cakes, wedding cake, run neck to neck with the price of a wedding gown. They're very expensive items, and the more fancy you want the cake, the more expensive it's going to be. That becomes one of the major pictures, if you will, the thing. One of the centerpieces of the wedding is that bridal cake. And then, do you want a groom's cake? And designing that groom's cake is going to be a thing. And I've seen all kinds of groom's cake. Some of them are simple. A lot of people, based on convenience, based on budget, now just have cupcakes. Just cupcakes. There's no cake cutting. There may be one little bitty cake bride and groom, for picture's sake, will cut that one tiny cake, and everybody else there gets a cupcake. So you've got all kinds of opportunity to make this work in all kinds of ways based upon your budget, based upon convenience, and all the above. If you are going to have a full-fledged cake, who's going to cut it? Who's going to serve it up? Are you going to have a buffet-style meal? You're going to have finger foods? You're going to have alcohol? It goes on to infinity when you start planning a wedding. All these little components. But let's back up a minute, because this is what happens when a couple first gets married. They get caught up in all those details, and they lag behind on the wedding itself. Because what you're planning with all those details is the reception. The wedding is that 20 or 30 minutes where you're actually having a ceremony. That's the wedding. The rest of it is reception. Unfortunately, the focus becomes on that reception, and the ceremony itself is kind of one of the last things that they focus on. I have gotten a call a week before a wedding. I thought we had somebody. That's the wedding. So who's going to stand up for you? Who's going to officiate this wedding? And then what do you want said? Some people are religious. Some people are very religious. Other people are not religious at all. Some people are to humor. Some people are more solemn. Some people are very traditionalist. Some people want to let's just have fun. I've seen it all. It's got to fit. It's your day. It's got to fit who you are. It don't have to be any particular way. There's no rules in a wedding. There's only tradition. Unfortunately, and I've worked with a lot of wedding planners. I've worked with a lot of wedding, quote unquote, pros. And unfortunately, some of them live in a bubble. They can't see outside the bubble they live in. They're very conventional. They're very traditional. I've had wedding planners, wedding directors, day of, who asked me to say a prayer and rehearsal. And I always say, it's not my wedding. Ask the couple. I do that knowing the couple's already told me, we don't believe in God. We just want a wedding. You don't have to believe in God to have a wedding. So you have to respect. If you are in the wedding business, if you're a wedding pro, do you respect the couple you're serving? Or are you trying to use their wedding to impose your as a philosophy zone? Some do. So I always tell the bride and the groom, don't be afraid to be very firm and adamant about what you want. This is your wedding. It's not your wedding planner's wedding. It's not the venue's wedding. And I tell the bride, it's not your mother's wedding either. She's had her wedding. This is your wedding. So it should be about you. It should be about your memories. And again, it's not just the bride's wedding. The groom's getting married too. Even though the focus is all on the bride, the groom is getting just as married as the bride is. So I want to go over the components before we go deeper into other elements of a wedding. I want to go into a generic flow of a ceremony. For those, even people that's been to weddings, don't pay a lot of attention to the flow, has choreographed, and those kind of things. And again, as I go over this traditional flow, this conventional flow of a ceremony, there's no rules. There's no book, there's no law that says this has to be done this way. That's just not there. It's totally your choice. Traditionally, conventional way of a wedding that you'll see at least 90%, 97% of the weddings you go to are going to be done in the fashion that I'm about to share with you. If the wedding starts at 5 p.m., usually at no later than 20 to 5, there will be prelude music. Whoever's providing the music, whether it's violinist, whether it's a DJ, they'll play what I call elevator music, so that people are coming into an atmosphere that's not quiet. At that point, people are not paying a lot of attention to what music's being played. One popular thing besides classical music, the super conventional people would have some classical music. The average person would have something like Piano Guys or something like that. It's not really paid attention to a lot. At about 5 till, 2 things are happening. 10 minutes till 5, if the wedding starts at 5, or 5 minutes to 5, these things are going to start happening. Probably about 10 minutes or so before starting time, someone's going to make the announcement. Usually, if I'm there, it's usually left up to me. I got a booming voice, and I'm going to officiate the wedding to get everybody to their seats, except the wedding party. Whoever's involved in coming down the aisle, and the mothers, if they're going to be escorted, the dads, if they're going to walk the daughter down the aisle, and that sort of thing. So you get all the guests to their seats. Now, in today's world, traditionally it used to be that the brides would sit on the side that the bride is standing, and the bride's friends and family, everybody that's there for the bride would be on the side that she's standing, and everybody that's there to support the groom would be on the side that he's standing. Nobody does it that way anymore. That is old school, if you will, because now, as far as the guests are concerned, they are told, don't pick a side, pick a seat. We're all family here. The front row or 2, based upon the number of immediate family, are reserved for those immediate families. Could be grandparents, could be parents, could be brothers, sisters. Those intimate relationships, those closest relatives, are reserved for the front rows. Now, traditionally, even to this day, you'll find that, again, the bride's parents, mother, sitting on the side that she's standing, and the groom's parents would be sitting, and close relatives would be sitting on the side that he's standing. I sometimes will make a suggestion. If you want to see your daughter's face, you're going to have a better view of her face if you sit on the opposite side so you can see her face. Because if you're sitting on the side that she's standing, you're going to see part of her face. Because the bride and groom are going to be standing facing each other during the ceremony, holding hands. I always recommend that they face each other and that they hold hands. The focus is on them, not me. I'm saying the words, I'm conducting the ceremony, but the focus is on them. It's a very intimate, powerful moment in their lives, and they should be sharing that together. It also opens up a better opportunity for better pictures for the couple when they stand facing each other. So it's your choice on any of this. But if they're facing each other and mother and grandmother want to see their daughter and granddaughter's face during the wedding, they're going to get a better view. If they're actually sitting on the side the groom is standing, they can see her face. And then the groom's family can see his face if they're sitting on the side of the bride's standing. Your choice. You can go the more conventional way. I'm going to sit over here, or you, whatever. But these are just things to think about. So as the guests are seated, whoever's directing the wedding is lining up the wedding party, either around a corner or down a hallway or somewhere before they come out. Everybody's ready, 5 o'clock. Somebody cues the DJ or the violinist, whoever is doing the music, and then the music would start. If the grandparents and the mothers are being escorted to their seats, they would generally go out first and be seated. If the father of the bride is escorting his wife to her seat, he would circle around because he's going to come back and get the bride. I suggest, and these are again just ideas to think about, that since the groom's family is on the day of the wedding is kind of second class to the bride's because she's getting all the attention, I always suggest that the groom escort his mother to her seat. And at that point, he can come and stand where I would be standing and wait on, or he could circle back around and come on through the rest of the processional. And a lot of these are details you can work out at rehearsal. If you've got a wedding and you've got at least 3 and 3 standing with you, 3 groomsmen, 3 bridesmaids, or whatever, walking through this usually the day before is a good thing, so everybody knows where they'll be standing and get things together so everybody's prepared. Sometimes they will have a run through or a rehearsal the morning of the wedding. You can save money with the venue, but most venues are going to charge you for that hour or so that you're having the rehearsal, if you're doing the rehearsal on a Friday. Sometimes a venue gets booked real heavy. They got a wedding on Friday, a wedding on Saturday, wedding on Sunday, and you don't have much option unless you do a rehearsal maybe on Thursday or Wednesday. And again, you can save some money sometimes if it's small. If it's a large wedding party, it don't work too good sometimes. It takes too much out of your day. But if it's a smaller wedding, and I mean smaller not by the number of guests, but the number of wedding party, a smaller number of wedding party, you can easily have the rehearsal the morning of the wedding. Say the wedding is going to be at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you could have a 11 o'clock in the morning rehearsal at the venue. And usually there's no extra charge for using it that same day. When you're booking your venue, they're going to have rules. Every venue's got different rules. Some venues don't allow alcohol. Some venues will let you spend the night there. Show up Friday, spend the night. Other venues are like, you've got X number of hours and they're going to make you stick to those X number of hours. There's no flexibility in them. Know the rules. I know one wedding venue, and I'll not name names, but they kind of take the punch out of the whole. People with $500 fines, won't let them decorate the car. And bottom line is, the last I heard, they were trying to sell that venue. They were finding it hard to compete being that tight. You can't even decorate a car on their property. Okay. Anyway, know their rules. Respect their property. Okay. Back up with rehearsal again. If you're having a rehearsal on a Friday evening, give thought as to the wedding party and if they're at work and what time they get off of work, and those practicalities. I've been at some rehearsals to where everybody was off that Friday. So they had the wedding rehearsal like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They didn't have to deal with traffic. It gave them the rest of the afternoon and the evening to deal with wedding planning, have a nice dinner, and be more relaxed. If that's not doable, I never suggest having a wedding rehearsal at 5 o'clock, or I suggest more like 6:30 or 7. Traffic is one thing. People getting off work is another. Well, tip, if you're having the wedding at, say, if you're having the rehearsal at 6, tell them the rehearsal's at 5:30. If you got a group of groomsmen and bridesmaids, there's always at least that one that is. So if you know who that one is, get them there on time, because there are some wedding venues and wedding directors that if they're not there on time, you're eating into other people's time. Respect the venue, respect the vendors who you're serving you on your wedding day. Their time is valuable to them. And if they say, we're going to have this rehearsal, you say, we're going to have this rehearsal at 6 o'clock, and you don't get started at 6:30 or 7, that's totally inconsiderate. That's all I can say. Okay, so be thoughtful. You want the best out of your vendors, then treat them with that kind of due respect. So back to the ceremony again. So the parents, grandparents have been seated. The groom and the wedding minister officiant are now up there. The groomsmen are normally marched in to join him at that, followed by the bridesmaids stand on the other side. Then if there's going to be a ring bearer, the ring bearer would come out. Then if there is going to be a flower girl, the flower girl would come out. Then the music would change. The father would escort the daughter up, usually to the front row of seats. The music would die. The minister officiant would traditionally say, who gives this woman to be married to this man? And then the groom would walk up, shake dad's hand, and he would bring his bride up to the altar. The bridesmaid or matron of honor would take her bouquet, straighten her dress. The bride and groom would face each other. If it's a religious ceremony, that would be normally where we would open with prayer while people are still standing, because once I see the bride and her dad coming out, that's when I have everybody stand. And while they're standing and the couple have just gotten there is the time that I would go in and say the prayer, and then I would have everybody seated. Then we would get into the ceremony. Based upon the couple, based upon their person, based upon what into the wording we agree to use. The introduction, talking about love, marriage, relationships. Then we're going to get to the point where I'll turn to the groom and I'll say, do you take this woman, blah, blah, blah. And he would say, I do. Then I would turn to the bride. I would say, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? She would say, I do. And then it would be time for the vows. A lot of couples will write their own vows, and that is the most wonderful vows you could ask for. They're personal, they're meaningful, and they're more powerful than repeat after me vows. But certainly, I respect their wishes if they won't repeat after me vows, and if we would go over the vows that they're going to repeat prior to the ceremony, that would be certain. So if they're going to write their own vows, the groom can have his vows written and in his pocket. The bride generally does not have pockets, so I always request that before the ceremony that I get her vows, and if it's her time for her vows, I will hand her vows, and then she could share her vows with her groom. When she is through reading those vows to him, I always encourage her to hand the vows to him. She may want to keep those to keepsake. If she gives them to me, I may forget to give them back to her, and she may forget to ask me for them because the party begins. After the vows is when you would go into the ring exchange. If there is a best man, the best man will sometimes have the rings. Based on the age of the ring bearer, if the ring bearer is 4 or 5, 6, sometimes it's not good to give them the real rings because you never know where this child is going to end up during the ceremony. And no matter how well behaved this child is, when they get around a group of people in this kind of atmosphere, you never know what's going to happen. So proceed at your own risk. I've seen people use their dogs as ring bearers. Doesn't always turn out well, trust me. So of course, the minister, the officiant needs to know who has the rings. At that point, I would ask, may I have the rings, please? Generally, because they're facing each other, to keep from a lot of twisting and turning, I would collect the rings. If it's a religious ceremony, sometimes I'll hold the rings up and we'll bless the rings. I'll put my hand between the bride and the groom. I'll tell the groom to take her ring and place it on her left-hand ring finger and repeat these words to her. It's called ring vows. Then I would hold my hand out and tell her to take his ring, place it on his left-hand ring finger, and repeat the vows to her. After that part is done, then that is normally when you would go into, some people do a unity candle, a sand ceremony. The gate you see behind us in this picture, you'll see locks. They do a Lovelock Ceremony there. There is abundance of ideas that you can use if you want to do that. Sometimes if there's children from previous relationships, and sometimes there's children from this relationship. Some couples have been together a long time and just hasn't gone through the formality of this wedding. And so if there's children involved, the sand ceremony works pretty good. You can involve the children in forming this family. If you're not familiar with the sand ceremony, you can really look it up, but it involves a larger vase, decanter of some sort, smaller vases with different colored sand in each vessel. Each color of sand representing that member of the family. One mid-sized vessel, container of sand for the bride and the groom. Usually it's black and white. Your choice, it doesn't matter. And then if you got children, there'd be smaller containers for the children. I would explain to the guests that you as a family are going to mix your sand together in this larger container, and that each of these containers of sand represent each of you as unique, distinct individuals. That you're not forming just a marriage, you are forming a family. And that when all this sand mixed together in this larger container, it's improbable that you could ever separate these grains of sand again. That you each maintain your individuality as you blend together. As you can see the colors mixing together, you've not lost your individuality. And just as it would be improbable to separate those grains of sand ever again, so it should be with your marriage. If you're not familiar with the Lovelock Ceremony, it works in a similar way with just the bride and groom. They have picked out a lock, and believe me, on that gate, you see, it's kind of hard to see, not much of it, but right there, there's a lake behind us, and that gate is right behind me in that picture. And they picked out a lock, and there's keys to the lock normally, and the lock is during the ceremony laying right on that banister right there above the gate. And when we get to that point in the wedding, I'm stepping off to the side. I'm directing the couple to go back to that gate, and I'm explaining to the guest what this locking of that lock on that gate symbolizes. That they are locking themselves together more or less. They're going to take the key and they're going to throw the key in that way. And that, just, again, and I'm doing this with great brevity, but be near impossible to find that key. They're locked together forever. And that's a poor way. I'm sorry I didn't say that as romantically as I generally would, but I think you get the point. After they do whatever it is, the unity candle, or they do the sand ceremony, or I've got other ideas that I introduce to the couple, because my job is to give them a lot to choose from. I tell couples I don't like repeat business, so let's do it right the first time. So after we do whatever they want done there to symbolize their joining together as husband and wife, then they would step back in front of me or whoever the minister is. I may say a few more words. If it's a really religious ceremony, I may say another prayer, and then I would pronounce them husband and wife. And then I would step out of the picture so they don't have to look at this in their first kiss pictures, and I would tell them to share their first kiss. And then after the first kiss, I would have them face the guests. I'd have the bride get her bouquet and introduce them as Mr. and Mrs. I'm always encouraging them, don't run off immediately. Stand there, let your photographer get that picture. Don't just take off. Also, let everybody know that's in the wedding party, as well as the couple, that the recessional moves a lot faster than the processional. Now, in all this I talked about, when it comes to seeing each other, traditional way is that the groom would not see his bride in her bridal gown, in her dress, until she comes down the aisle. A lot of people don't stick to that. I would say it's maybe 60% don't and 40% do. A lot of people want to get the first look out of the way so that after the wedding ceremony, they can get a few pictures done and join for the celebration after that. That is important to them. If they've already done a first look, that's fine. They've already seen each other. Some people are more casual with that. The more traditionalist, the more conservative, wait for her to come down the aisle. I suggest working with their photographer that so they can get the impact of that first look, that I will turn the groom around so he does not see her until she's halfway down the aisle or so, and the photographer is ready to get his face around. So I'll still first look for them even during the ceremony. So the guest, after I've introduced them, Mr. and Mrs., and everybody applauds and cheers, the guest will remain at their seats until the wedding party, and then the parents and grandparents of the couple would be then escorted out, and then I would send all the other guests and all the other family members to wherever the reception area is going to be. Whatever pictures are remaining would be taking place. The guests would go and enjoy some finger foods, cocktail hour, whatever they've arranged. From there, after the pictures are done, there's, again, more than one way to handle this. There are a lot of couples that this pressure of this day, they've not had a time to take a breath. Maybe it's the first time they've seen each other all day. So after they've had that last pictures done after the ceremony, they may want to eat alone. They may want to, a lot of venues have a special private place to send the bride and the groom, bring food to them, let them sit, let them unwind, let the bride bustle her dress so she can dance, just to catch that breath before they go in and join their guest for the reception. So when they've gone through this, even if they don't do the eating part, when they're ready to come into the reception area, some people have the entire wedding party introduced couple by couple. Some people just want the bride and groom introduced. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. There'd be the DJ or who's emceeing would introduce them. Everybody's attention, please go to your seats, your tables, wherever you're sitting, and the bridal party is about to enter, and then you will start from the end, work your way up to the best man, maid of honor, and then you would pump it up for the bride and the groom. They would come in and usually go straight to the dance floor and engage in their first dance immediately. And then the bride would dance with her dad, and then the groom would dance with his mother. And then things would settle down with some background music while people eat. After some time has passed, they would go to the cake cutting, dessert. There would be a toast. Sometimes there'd be speeches. And that's iffy now, too. A lot of speeches get done at the rehearsal dinner nowadays. Totally up to you. Some people will not allow certain people to give a toast because once Buddy over here has had a couple of beers, no telling what he's going to say. Don't give him a mic. I've heard that more than once. Normally, the father of the bride is one of the ones that will give a speech, and then the best man and the maid of honor. One thing I see a lot of now is I see the groom's father being the best man. So the opportunities are endless because, again, in weddings, there's no rules. There's a lot of tradition. According to how much a traditionalist you are, according to how conventional you are, is how you may want to flow with it. I've seen it go every way in the world. I've seen because of a profile or something, the bride will stand on my left instead of my right, just inverted. I've seen the groomsmen not be all male. There'd be a mixture of male and female. I've seen the bridesmaids not be all female. There'd be a mixture of male and female, according to what relationships there are. That's fine. That is 100% fine. And then, of course, we live in a world today where there are same-sex marriages. There's all this mix. This could be a positive thing. Now, you have to find out ahead of time, does your wedding planner have an issue with you being non-traditional? This could create an issue. I've worked with wedding planners that just can't get out of that mindset. I know venues that will not deal with same-sex couples. They just won't do it. So there's a lot, according to what your relationship is, according to your circumstances, There's a lot that's got to be dealt with up front because not everybody will deal with. There's still some, believe it or not, there's still some venues out there that won't deal with an interracial marriage. They don't like it when a white marries a black or a black, you know what I'm saying? They don't like that. It's sad, in my opinion, but that's something you need to know and right out of the gate when you're planning this thing out, especially in our part of the world. And don't seem to be just our part of the world. Um, but that's something that has to be dealt with because you want to proceed. This should be a happy occasion. This should be a celebration. So you want to get any possible negatives out of the picture way up front. Communicate clearly. Know some details about your wedding that are not what these wedding planners and different ones would call normal. If your situation does not fall within the cultural norms of where you live, then make sure that you communicate that to your venue, to your wedding, to all your vendors, because it could ruin your party. I'm telling you, it could really sour things for you. If all of a sudden during this process it comes out at rehearsal, God forbid, that you're doing something that's just not conventional, it could turn out not nice. You could have vendors walk away. So be very clear and precise to what you want. Never let anybody forget that it's your wedding. You're paying for it. You have a right to get what you want. If they're not willing to serve you on your terms, you need to know that up front, and you need to go elsewhere. And that don't mean it has to be a same-sex or interracial or anything like that. I've seen people that just are not conventional. I've seen couples that do a maypole at their wedding. Their entire ceremony is off the beaten path because their views, their philosophies are not your norm. They don't go to a Christian church. They don't go to a Hindu church. They do something totally different than the norm. It's all legal. Nothing ugly about it. It's just not conventional. Now I say, there's also such a thing, surprised me, in Alabama, a nudist wedding. Okay? It does happen. It really does happen. All right. I'm going to start making myself available. I'm going to be putting these live streams out. I've been going at it real close to an hour here. Nobody's called. I'm not seeing any comments. Of course, this is going in several places, and I don't know if I'd see comments everywhere this is streaming. But there is a beginning point to a traditional conventional wedding and the various components of it. And I cannot emphasize enough that in weddings, there is a lot of tradition, but there are no rules. You can literally design your own wedding from scratch. We're trained to believe, and it's a false belief, that the reason the bride wears white is because it represents purity. As far in more frugal times, the bride would simply pick out the nicest dress she already owned. It was uncommon for a bride to go out and buy an expensive dress just to be worn one time. That was not common practice at all. This white dress, this white gown thing began because of some royalty over in the UK decided to wear a white gown, and like Princess Di and everybody else, people follow fads, and that's where the white dress started. You can look these things up. You don't have to take my word for it. There's a reason the bride wears a veil. There's a reason we say, do you take this? No. There's a reason we say, who gives this woman to be married to this man? Because the history going back into arranged marriages, the parents gave their daughter away. Usually there was a dowry involved. It pays to understand some of the history of these things. It doesn't mean that you don't have, that you don't have to participate. If you still want to do that, that's fine. But knowing where some of these traditions come from gives you freedom. It gives you the liberty to say, I don't have to do that. I can do it this way. I've had some brides that say, I'm not property. I don't want to be given away. How about some brides, I'll not even ask who gives or anything. The father may escort her up, and I say nothing. Or I could say who presents, who escorts, who blesses this union. There's other wording. You don't have to say who gives. There are many options. The veil that you see, the veil is not as common as it used to be, but there was a reason for the veil. It wasn't for aesthetics. They didn't wear veils because it looked good. They wore veils because a lot of times the groom never knew he didn't know what this girl looked like, because this was arranged marriage. He may not have a clue. They didn't want to take a chance of him seeing an ugly bride and copping out on this thing, giving a problem. The reason there's groomsmen, the reason there's bridesmaids. I do a lot of weddings where there's no wedding party at all. The last wedding I did, there was no groomsman, there was no bridesmaid. It was me, the couple, and the guest. Simple, to the point, no rehearsal needed. We just kind of talked it through. They still got married. Still as legally married as anyone else. It's still a moving, powerful ceremony without anybody standing there except for them and myself. So you don't even have to have a wedding party. I've seen numerous occasions where the bride is not escorted out. She walks down the aisle by herself. Sometimes the bride will walk down the aisle, and when she's halfway down the aisle, the groom will go meet her and escort her the rest of the way up. Then you've got a situation where we have so many families that have divorces and whatnot, and new spouses, that the bride has got a father and a stepfather. I've seen the father escort her halfway down the aisle, and the stepfather escort her the rest of the way up the aisle. I've seen the father and the stepfather both, one on one arm, one on the other arm, escorted down the aisle. Again, there's no rules. Every family is different. The relationships are different, and these are decisions you have to make as to how you want to do it. I've seen it all done very casually. I've married a couple in the aisle of a Belk's department store. I've married a couple at a Waffle House. I've married a couple while they were sitting in the cab of their 18-wheeler. My parents got married at the courthouse. Nobody knew about it. There's no pictures to prove it. You've got to understand that none of these things make the marriage. In my role in marriages, I encourage people to give thought. You're investing sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in a one-day affair called a wedding. How much are you investing in your marriage? Here's the book. Oh, I put that in the wrong place. That didn't work out too good. There's the book, right? That wasn't where I wanted to put the book. Let's see. I don't think that's the book. Is that the book? Nope. Hold on a second. But I wrote a book, and here we go. Now I can show you the book. Is this it? There you go. Creating a Wedding or a Marriage. Creating a Wedding or a Marriage. You can find that book on Amazon, Amazon.com. Just look for my name. I got a bunch of books up there. Some of them are relationship books, and some of them have absolutely no relationship to weddings or relationships. Premarital counseling, I said I was going to talk about that for a second. I don't require it, but talking about investing in a marriage versus investing in a wedding. The wedding will last a few hours at best. Well, actually, the wedding ceremony, again, is 20, 30 minutes. The rest of it's a party. Let's be real. So all the planning and everything you're doing there is a very short-lived affair. The marriage, lifetime. Hopefully, the marriage will last a lifetime. And I'm a facilitator for a program called SYMBIS, SYMBIS, which stands for Saving Your Marriage Before It Begins. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, have this session prior to your having been married. Most couples, by the time they get to the altar, quote unquote, they've already been living together, some for a long time. I like to say that anything you do, like the Simbas program, is taking a good relationship and making it great, having a great understanding of this relationship. And I think that's a good thing. Not everybody needs it. Not everybody cares. Everybody's different. It is available. Simbas, saving your marriage before it starts. So I'm going to do this again. I've been on here an hour. I don't see that anybody's asked any questions. There's a lot more that I can cover in regards to weddings. That went by pretty quick on my end anyway. And that don't even get all the details. We haven't talked about sending out invitations. We hadn't talked about all these other things that go in, elements that go into a wedding in a traditional sense, and what you can do. But I'm going to do this again and try to share this all over the place. I am going to go over time because I promised I'd talk a little bit more about the laws that changed August 29th of last year in regards to getting married in Alabama. And they changed the way they do things in Alabama because of the same-sex marriage. Judges did not want their name attached to a marriage license in regards to same-sex couple. So Alabama took marriage licenses out of the equation. You now, to get married in Alabama, you go online to the Alabama Department of Statistics, marriage certificate. See a PDF form. There are two different forms. One for if you're a minor, and then the other one for adults. The minors, of course, have to have parental permission to get married. I think you can get married in Alabama as early as age 16. Most people are going to go to the one that says adult. You're going to fill out this PDF form online. There'll be a place there for the brides, for one, I got to keep this clean, for one spouse's information, and then another part of it for the other spouse's information. Then you print that form out, and you need to, if you want the date of your wedding to be reflected as the date you had your ceremony, then you need one person can go ahead and get their signature notarized. And if the wedding's going to be on Saturday, the other person would need to get their signature notarized on Saturday, because the latter of the two dates is the date the state is going to take as the date of your marriage. So now you don't have to go to probate at all. You don't have to go to a courthouse at all. You can do the paperwork online. Alabama Department of Vital Records, Statistics, Vital Records, call it, marriage certificate. There's no longer a marriage license. Fill out that form online. Print it out. I urge you to print out more than one copy because I've had them rejected for just having a copy stain on the. Make sure before you print it out, all the information there correctly. I've seen them rejected for various reasons. Take your time, fill it out, make sure you've got it filled out 100% correctly. Print out 2 or 3 copies of it. Make sure you've got that there on your wedding day. Make sure you've got a notary lined up on your wedding day, because it'll need to be notarized by at least one of the 2 signatures. Needs to be notarized on that date. If you want that date, it has to be the latter of the 2 signatures on that date. One of them can be notarized a previous date. But if you have one of the, but bring it there on your wedding day. Make sure there's a notary to notarize it. Be prepared to compensate your notary for their time. Legally, the notary can only charge $10, I think, per signature for notarizing. But they also can charge for travel expense. So they've come to your venue, they've used their time, their expense of getting there. Be prepared to compensate the notary for taking care of that for you. Technically speaking, in Alabama, that's all that's needed to get married. From there, you take that notarized marriage certificate, that's what it's called, and you will get that back to any probate office in the entire state of Alabama. Every probate office has been given the liberty to set their own fee. So you would need to, if the money's tight with you, you'd need to find the probate office in Alabama that charges the least amount of money. Some of them charge different amounts of money to file it. Others are more reasonable. The averages, I think, is going to be around 70 or 80 bucks. But I've seen some of them that go well up towards well over $100, over close to 200. And so I don't know each county, but you can get online. You can find that out. You can call around. Normally, I understand that you find out what their fee is. You'll take that piece of paper. The marriage certificate that you've had your signature notarized, and you will put that in an envelope along with the appropriate fee that probate office requires to file it. And then you should enclose also a self-addressed stamped envelope so they can return to you a certified or a copy of the filed marriage certificate. And that'll be what you do. Your name changes. That's your proof of marriage. That is your marriage certificate. It's not very impressive to look at, but it is the legal document, and it'll be shown as a filed document with what you get back from them. Now, you need, again, check with each probate office. I'm not sure, but it's my understanding there's a possibility that some probate offices are charging up to $15 for that certified copy, if you will, of the filed document. Others will provide you with one copy as long as you are providing a way for them to mail it to you, which would be a self-addressed stamped envelope. So again, in reality, in Alabama, you never have to go to a courthouse. It can be done online and in the mail. The only thing you have to do outside of your house, unless you get somebody to come to you, is you've got to get the marriage certificate notarized with your signatures. Other than that, you never have to go to court. Okay? And that's the way you get it done in Alabama. You don't even have to be together. So I'm not going to go into that ad nauseum. But the point is that it's pretty simple to get married in Alabama at this point. There's no need for a ceremony, no special words required, no minister required, no party required. If you just want to get married, you don't need to be calling around trying to find somebody to get you married. If you want to make it special, you feel like you want to say some vows, you could just say the vows to yourself. You don't have to pay anybody to stand up with you. So you can roll like that all you want to. You don't have to spend any money. In Alabama, you can get the whole thing done right now for less than $100 to be married. Okay? And that's just to be fair with you. If you can afford it and you want it and desire it, you can go for a full-blown wedding. Just as long as you know it's not a requirement to get married. Okay? You can get it just as legally married, by the way I just told you, as if you did all of this. Most weddings throughout the history of marriages never had photography, never had any of the things that we've got today. And they were just as married as this couple that you see in this picture. So I urge people to think about your own circumstances, your own needs, and design your day, design your affair to fit your budget and who you are, what your philosophies are, and what your interest in life. Plan it based upon your vision of what this day should be about. And that's very, very important. Make sure that once you have in your mind what you want, that you are very open with all your vendors, your venue, so they understand. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't think outside the box. So you got to be careful with that. If you're out in left field a little bit, that's great. In fact, for most of the wedding vendors that I know, if you're out in left field and you do things in a very unconventional way, we love it because we see so much of the same stuff over and over. We hear the same music over and over. We see the same kind of dresses over and over. It's almost carbon copies carbon copy weddings. The pictures are carbon copies. So the more out there you are, the more some of us like it because it's entertaining to us. It's more fun. So don't be scared to ask. Don't be afraid to do it your way. Your wedding, your way. Any questions? 888-501-6689. My website is KELSEYGRAHAM.com. And we serve the entire Southeast from the Gulf Coast all the way up through Tennessee, Georgia, and Mississippi. So if you need us, want us, be glad to serve you. We talked a lot about Alabama. Not much has changed as far as getting married in Mississippi, Georgia, and Tennessee. Tennessee last year did pass a law that they do not recognize people who are online ordained. And I know there's still people in Tennessee that are online ordained that are still doing this. In Alabama, you don't have to have any kind of ordination. You don't have to do anything. As long as you want somebody to stand up there and say these words for you, there's no requirement that the words be said, number one. And the minister is not signing any papers. The role that I filled in Alabama, I'm not any longer, my signature is not going on anything. It's yours and a notary. So just keep that in mind. It's a whole different ball game since August 29th of last year. So don't be fooled. Don't be pressured, because 90% minimum, actually 99% of what goes on at weddings has nothing to do with the marriage, and has actually it's all add-ons, if you will. There's no requirement for pictures. There's no requirement for a white dress. There's no requirement for tuxes. There's no requirement for music. There's no requirement for a wedding cake. There's no requirement for any of that. And none of it, all that is for celebration. And it's aesthetics. So just keep those things in mind. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from doing what they want to do, but I want you to know and have an understanding so you can decide what you really want to do. Are you doing things simply because that is the conventional, traditional way we do it? Or do you have a dream, something that you would like special and unique for you? If you consider yourself a unique individual, go with it. Be the uniqueness that you are, and let your wedding, let this day represent who you are, not who somebody else is, not who your wedding planner is, not who mama is, not who aunt is, but who you are. Don't be afraid of that. So that sums up an hour and 12 minutes here. And if you've got any questions, again, 888-501-6689. If you need any assistance in any component of your wedding, I've been involved in thousands of weddings in my career, and be glad to work with you from start to finish. And if you need recommendations, I know a lot of wedding vendors out there. If you just need some input and ideas, I'll be glad to work with you. Other than that, congratulations if you are engaged. And if you are now replanning your wedding because you feel it's safe now to go ahead, still keep in mind that the virus is still there. It hasn't gone away. Be practical. You can have a wedding and practice some social distancing. There's a lot of things you can do to still have your day. A lot of people have postponed their weddings to 2021. As you can tell, I'm probably not a wedding vendor's favorite person because I'm not encouraging you to do anything, number one, that you can't afford to do. I'm not encouraging you to put people in danger of their health or life simply for this affair we call wedding. And I am encouraging you to realize that this wedding has nothing to do with marriage. Your marriage you'll be working on every day for the rest of your lives together. So the wedding is a celebration of the love and what's taken place in the heart already. So keep that in mind. Nothing wrong with the wedding, nothing wrong with celebrating that, but don't start your lives out in debt. Don't feel pressure to do things that you don't feel you need to do. There's no requirement whatsoever. So on that note, I hope everybody has a great rest of the evening and rest of the week.